Petersburg appears to be in an identity crisis, known for arts, beaches, affordability. Well, the area is wrestling with rapid growth that many residents feel is totally out of step with the culture there. A proposed 21-story luxury tower called the Pelican is built. The building is moving forward despite noted opposition from residents and historic conservation groups. Preserve the Burg recently appealed an earlier commission approval because developers want to make the building even higher. Now, despite a majority 4-3 against the new plans, the Pelican will move forward. Opponents needed a supermajority to overturn the earlier decision of the commission. The possible deciding council member was absent from this. Development issues aren't limited to St. Pete, though. The Tampa Bay Times this week highlighted Water Street. $4 billion in development has given way to high-end apartments, restaurants, and retail. Proponents say it signals a growing, vibrant city, but critics argue that Tampa is about so much more than luxury living. Catherine, I'd like to start with you. You've done a series of stories recently on the whole crunch of housing affordability. What are you hearing from folks in the community?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of questions about these luxury condo developments that have been going up in St. Pete, and we've seen them in Tampa as well. I mean, we have the branded Waldorf Astoria on the way in St. Pete. We have 400 Central, which is the tallest building in the city now. The Pelican case was apartments, but they are billing it as sort of upscale, luxury living, and I haven't seen any indication of what the rents will be. But, there's a question of where are the people who actually, service the city going to live, your service industry workers, your, school employees, et cetera, right. That can't afford these places. And it's sort of creates a tension in a city that, was really valued for the arts and had some grit to it, had a little bit, just had a little bit of that gritty, like, this is an undiscovered place, and
we at Florida this week have heard from groups that represent young professionals in the region across all different counties who say that they feel as though they're being forced out to move further and further away because they cannot afford to buy homes or pay the rent in the areas that are very vibrant that everyone wants to be a part of.
Correct.
Right. Yeah, no, I hear that a lot from readers as well, and that was certainly some of the response to the story. It's creating an interesting tension in St. Pete. Just, residents are asking, residents have brought up, how does this continue to keep happening? Who is approving these projects? Can the city do anything to stop it? And that's why I wanted to highlight the Pelican case, because it really shows the limitations of what the city can and can't do to stop development like that. Part of the council argued that, if this project meets the requirements under city code and policy, then they should be able to build it. That's how development works. But the other part of the council and Preserve the Burg, the historic preservation organization, argued, no, you have discretion. You can use your discretion to say, no, we don't want this kind of development, scale it down. I think there was a lot of agreement that this particular block in town should be redeveloped, but should it be redeveloped to this magnitude? And so I think that's something I want to keep, digging into more is, okay, what is on the books and what could potentially residents and council members change if they wanted to try to pump the brakes?
Look, I'm not a young hospitality worker, but I can't afford it either. I moved recently, and I looked at the downtown towers here in Tampa. For one thing, the HOA fees and the fees that they pile on you are something that I'm just not willing to pay.
Yeah,
and I'm not willing
like
to make
$3,000 to $5,000 a month for a little 500 square foot apartment. I don't know who the heck would.
It's crazy, and $700 plus HOA fees. So I don't know who's paying that. I'll be interested to see what the rents will be over there.
But there's a story behind the story, which is, I think, what you're really getting to, which is representation. There were people, everyday St. Petersburg people, showing up at these city council meetings, and they were not funded by big money. They were themselves showing up and wanting representation and wanting to impact democracy. And I think the hard part about this isn't just the gentrification. I mean, I'm a St. Pete College professor, okay? I'm watching my students have a hard time staying in Pinellas County. They're moving out to just come to school in. It's tough for educators, firemen, people like that, to stay within the city limits. But the bigger part of the story was that the city council wasn't listening to local residents. And what does that mean about representative democracy?
Well, or in the case of the Pelican, the city council did listen to local residents,
Yes,
and
but
quite a few of them.
It was a procedural hiccup that didn't allow the supermajority to allow it to go forward. We were talking about that.
Well, one of the biggest problems is there's a fund called the Sadowski Fund that's supposed to fund affordable housing statewide, which is set up when I worked for Bob Graham. And sadly, every year the Republican majority has sapped billions of dollars out of that money that's supposed to go to pay for affordable housing. And so there's less and less money every year to be able to fund projects that can afford to, school teachers, policemen, firemen, they can't even afford to live in the city they work.
The city has, and the St. Pete and Pinellas County have partnered to cut the ribbon on several affordable housing complexes in the city and county. So that is happening as well. It's just not at the same pace as your private market rate development.
Right.